What's up guys, it's your boy Waterberg Boy here, and today I'm going to give you guys my Rise of the Skywalker review. So I saw the movie a little bit after it came out, and well, I enjoyed it, but what I have to say about it, you'll have to watch the video to find out. So this is my Rise of the Skywalker review. First off, one of the first things I noticed was they immediately start pushing that Rey is a Jedi, which we see immediately in literally the first scene she's in, where she's floating like 5 meters above ground with like rocks circling her. Even after that, she's constantly force healing things and using the force in lots of different ways that we don't see a lot in the other movies. In the other movies, when there's the Jedi, they're Jedi, and we know they're Jedi. We don't need to be proven to. They aren't floating 5 meters above ground. They're using the Force, but they're not constantly using the Force. And I think Disney is just really pushing Rey as a Jedi, and they're using just way too much of the Force that, let's be real, she wasn't using before. All she was doing before was just Force push, Force pull, Force things, moving things. Really, that's all she was doing. She was not floating, she was not healing things. I think they just really push too much that she's a Jedi now. Moving on to probably one of the most critiqued things about the sequel trilogy is the characters. Let's start with Finn. Finn, I think he was a real missed opportunity. I think from the get-go they could have had a really interesting, morally complex story about stormtroopers and how they are brainwashed and how Finn's a defect. They could have been less as something to shoot at and more of a complex plot point that really makes you think. And this didn't just have to be for everyone. It could have just been for Finn himself being reluctant, but we see him just blasting away at stormtroopers all day long. He doesn't seem to care that they used to be his friends, and that the death of his friend, stormtrooper friend, is what snaps him out of his brainwashed state. Poe was really just a hotshot pilot. He was reckless, passionate for a cause. Now these aren't bad things, but we've already seen this before. Han Solo was a reckless pilot who was passionate for the rebellion. Anakin Skywalker, you can make an argument that Anakin was a hotshot pilot that cared for the Republic and his family, more or less. So they really just made another character that we've already seen before, and I think he could have been taken out and replaced with something different, something new we haven't seen before. Something like Finn, but without a missed opportunity. Now, back onto Rey. Rey was entirely defined by who her parents were. And in The Last Jedi, to its credit, they actually changed that and they made it so that she sort of got over that and she wasn't completely defined by who her parents were. And she'd sort of come to terms that they were nobody. And that could have opened the floor for, something more meaningful. Maybe making the next generation of Jedi. It could have been trying to save Ben Solo from himself, not her parents. Again, even after she got over them, now they're Palpatines and she has to care about them all over again. And finally, I just wanted to say that a character showing lots of different emotions isn't a complex character. Just because they can be sad, happy, show more complex emotions, doesn't mean they are a complex character. A complex character will have maybe conflicting ideals. There's lots of different ways you can make a complex character, but characters showing different emotions does not make them complex. Again, with characters, Finn yelled at Rey way too much. It was a huge waste of John Boyega's talent, just having Finn yell Rey 24/7. The soundtrack was great, there was a real bop. Continuing on with good things other than the soundtrack, Ben Solo or Kylo Ren, whatever you want to call him, is exempt from all the rest of the characters as being bad, flimsy, one-dimensional, me having a problem with them, because I actually quite like Ben, and he's actually a pretty cool character. He presents something we haven't seen on screen before, which is a Sith that's conflicted between the dark side and the light side, who's really light, but wants to be dark. Darth Vader, for example, he wasn't really conflicted. He was dark, and then he was light. There was no conflicting area where he spent lots of time doubting himself. Now, this confliction drives him to kill his father, as he thinks that it'll help him cement his path on the dark side, which is what he wants. But really all it does is drive him further into pain and conflict between his light self, you could say, and his dark self. To ignore the conflict that's happening in it, Ben drowns himself in the work of Supreme Leader of the Final Order. And it seems to be working for him in most of Rise of the Skywalker, but in the end, he chooses the light path as he knows it's the way to go. And he helps Rey defeat Palpatine and that whole thing. And that's how he redeems himself. The little bit of Force, I think it's called a Force Dyad, D-Y-A-D, Force connection, Force Skype Tinder thing. I'm glad they really toned that down, but they didn't get rid of it completely just because everybody hated it, which would be a very easy thing for Disney to do and just shove it under the rug. But there's a lot of things, especially Rose Tico and stuff like that, where they didn't just shove them under the rug because The Last Jedi was so hated, but they actually tried to work them through this movie. Now, I found the lightsaber fights in this movie very underwhelming, compared to like previous films, animated series. Animated series, because characters are animated, obviously they can do flips and whatnot. The sequel trilogy as a whole has a problem with the choreography of these fights, which I reckon is really disappointing because you have a look, Daisy Ridley, who plays Rey, obviously. She goes through a lot of training to get ready for her role. She does kickboxing, she works out. The time and energy she's putting into getting ready for her role and her movie is wasted on these fights. It's really wasted, because all it is just batting a lightsaber. There's more to lightsaber fights than just batting lightsabers about. And I think all the work that all the characters, not just Daisy Ridley, but Adam Driver, mainly those two, they're the only ones that really lightsaber fight, but the time and effort they put into getting ready for their roles, I think is really wasted in these lightsaber fights. The Battle of Exegol, we're going all the way to the end of the film now. I love that. Overall, I really enjoyed it. Like, I got goosebumps seeing all the ships pull up. It was like the portal scene from Avengers Endgame. This space battle really lived up to what a Star Wars space battle should be, which was epic, and it gave me chills and goosebumps. And the creativity with landing on the ships, especially because they're not outside Exegol's atmosphere, was really cool. Alright, so back to just bad stuff that I didn't like. What is a spice runner, exactly? Because they make it such a big deal that Poe was a spice runner back in the day, and they don't give any explanation what a spice runner is. It's just a big deal, there's like nothing, no explanation whatsoever, not even the smallest little bit of context. And just watching the whole thing felt like I was watching like a primary school jokes, honestly. That's how low that was, that whole scene. Where there's like, oh, you used to be a spice runner, or you used to be a stormtrooper, or you used to be a spice runner, or you used to be a scavenger. Well, shut up! Nobody cares. What's a spice runner? Why is it such a big deal? And you know what? I found out what a spice runner was, and it wasn't because I watched anything about the movie, it was because I watched a YouTube video that had nothing to do with spice running or Rise of the Skywalker. And it turns out spice running is actually a highly addictive drug, and the runners just run it around the galaxy. So it is a huge deal. Spice is what it's called, the drug. So anyway, I really hated the whole spice runner thing. Palpatine returned somehow was a terrible reason for Palpatine returning. Honestly, I think Palpatine came out of nowhere. I don't think J.J. Abrams really planned this, and there were huge eye rolls when they go, oh, Palpatine returned somehow. And all they say is dark magic, dark Sith secrets. Like, that's not enough. You need to have more than that. The Knights of Ren could have been replaced with literally any bad character. They could have been like a bunch of mercenaries or like a group of bounty hunters. They really served no purpose in this movie. All they did was stand around, walk menacingly behind Kylo, or Ben, whatever you want to call him. Really, all they did was stand around and look pretty. Which is terrible, a terrible thing to be doing. I think they could have been replaced with literally anything. They could have just been a group of special ops stormtroopers, like the Death Troopers from the Imperial era. They could have been, when they were on Exegol, when the Knights of Ren were on Exegol, they could have been Sith Troopers. They didn't need to be the Knights of Ren specifically, especially on Exegol. And that would have given Sith Troopers a much bigger role, as I'll explain later. I really didn't like them. But basically, the Knights of Ren serve no purpose whatsoever, and apparently their relevance to anything ever in the sequel trilogy is linked to comics. And in my personal opinion, if something has to be explained to me in the comics or in like a book version of the movie, I don't think it's an excuse for having bad plot points. Oh, it's in the comics. Well, I don't read those comics, so you got to explain it to me in the movie or just don't put them in. Moving on to Sith Troopers, which were a terrible letdown. I thought they were going to have a much bigger role. Disney really hyped them up to be something way cooler than what they actually were. They were just red stormtroopers for our protagonists to hit. So they were terrible, and I didn't like them at all. But yeah, they were in the movie, and Disney hyped them up for nothing. So yeah. All in all, the movie moved from plot point to plot point so fast, in fact, that I didn't have time to get bored. Which was good, considering all my criticisms about characters and yada yada yada. So it was a good thing that it moved so fast for me, so I didn't get bored. But honestly, that's not a great thing to be doing because people don't have time to sit in certain plot points. It was just moving way too fast. Anyway, that's my opinion on Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker. Overall, it was a very entertaining movie though. Despite my criticisms on the characters, I enjoyed watching, and I think that's the main thing. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, and subscribe if you like my videos. And I hope to see you guys next video. Bye.